Okay, so this was kind of a last minute stand-in, so I'm actually reusing some content from a conference, a Slack developer conference last year. But I'm going to talk a little bit about some of our chat ops, Slack bot integrations that we've been building at Shopify that tie into developer productivity. So just to set the stage for why we started pursuing this direction, if you go back like 4 or 5 years at Shopify, we were still at that time a fairly small company, a couple hundred people, almost all of which were in one physical building in one location. And the company really valued the ability to get everyone together in a room when you need to make a decision. And it was a very powerful effect when you can get people together and you could solve a problem or do some education or there's lots of different situations where just getting people in a room to make a decision or to fight through an issue was really valuable. So the company really loved this, and actually when the new headquarters was built where we are now, we had this operations room built, is what you can see in the slide here. So the other end of this room is a giant display wall of monitors, and the idea is we could use this operations room for doing incident response. We use it for education events and things. Any time where we get people synchronizing quickly. We were going really fast, and the physical room, the operations room, became obsolete almost as soon as it was built. Because we were also at the time building, other offices, and we quickly went up to, 500 and 1,000 people, and this idea of a physical room, in retrospect, seems really quaint. So what we wanted to do is we wanted to build some tools that could give us the feel of this physical space that we could all get into in very critical moments, but in a more scalable way. So the natural solution we went towards was building integrations in Slack. Actually, there was a predecessor to Slack, but it was before my time, so I'm going to focus on the Slack integration. So what we built was a platform where, so it's written in Ruby. It's using the Lita bot framework. So we have this application that's running in containers in a couple of our data centers. So that's the spy piece here, little robot, and it integrates because it's running in our data centers. It has direct access to our infrastructure, and it can query the state of our physical environment and manipulate it in limited ways. And then it also has integrations with a large number of different third-party services that we use as part of the developer day-to-day. So Circle CI integrates strongly with GitHub, with PagerDuty, with a number of other different systems. So we have this bot in a place where it can access a lot of the different infrastructure and tools that we need. And then the front end of it integrates through Slack as an application, and then teams and individual users can interact with it through the Slack interface. So I'm sure most of you have similar, whether it's Slack or other chat tools, similar kinds of structure. So I don't need to dwell on this too much. But I'm just going to go through a few different scenarios where we found this kind of chat interface to be very valuable for developers. So the first one is what I'll call situational awareness during deploys. So at Shopify, we're doing a continuous delivery style of development where there are sort of 40 to 50 production releases of the main application a day, dozens of other sort of smaller applications that are also deploying quite frequently. So it is a very fast-paced environment where there's a lot of change going on. And it's really important that everyone has the information, and it's highly automated. So there's a lot of basically a developer says, I have a PR, it's ready to go. Automation, go please deploy it, merge it and deploy it for me. So the first thing that the chat integration does is it lets everybody who's a participant in deploys know what's going on. So me as a developer, I have a change that I've requested to be deployed. The Slack integration will send me notifications in a private message where it'll say, hey, we've got this commit of yours. We are ready to deploy it. We're deploying it now, so please keep an eye on. It's just letting you know you need to be there and be available. and then it lets you know after the deploy is completed, your deploy has gone out, please double check that it's all good. Here's what to do if something goes wrong. So as a developer who is a participant in the deploy in a very fast-paced environment, it really helps to give me the exact information I need when I need it. So it helps me filter through all the noise of what's going on. So that's what I see as a developer in a private communication from the Slack bot when I have a commit that's being deployed. Now we have a shared operations channel where similar information is being put out, where a deploy is going out and it'll list all of the PRs that are being deployed and all the people who authored them. And because this is a shared channel, this is a very natural place where if something has gone wrong with the deploy, something unusual has happened, the conversation about what to do about it flows very naturally out of this. So you have this notification saying a deploy happened. Someone said, in this particular case, someone saying that there's a failure, I'm going to look into it. And everyone is immediately able to see what's going on. They're able to quickly connect to the state of what's being deployed. And if there's problems that I know that Justin or so-and-so is looking into that. So it's all good. So it gives me this one place that I can go and quickly synchronize on the state of what's going on in this very fast-paced deploy environment. So a few other commands that we built in to support this. So one is the ability to lock deployments. So as I said, deployments are normally going out in a very automated fashion, but there are situations where we might want to lock deploys, if something's broken, or we're in a situation where, in this particular scenario, I think it was, they were deploying a monitoring change and didn't want to have other changes going out at the same time. We have a command that lets you lock the deployment automation, and people can still deploy manually. So the first thing you see at the top there is someone locking the main Shopify stack for auto deploys. The other thing you can see on this particular screenshot is we have, as I said, the merging into master and deployment is automated, but someone could manually merge into master. And we have a Chrome extension that lets the developer, that adds to the GitHub interface, that lets them see that master is locked. And if they merge anyway, they get this sort of shame message that says, hey, the system is locked, but and you shouldn't deploy. And what this does is the reason we don't absolutely prevent merging is we want developers to have that option available if there is an emergency. So we trust people to do the right thing, and if they really feel like they must merge a change, they can do it. But there's sort of a feedback mechanism here that says, hey, you merged this at a time that wasn't good. So it's kind of a compromise between a lockdown environment and still letting developers do what they need to do. And the final thing you see here is, so let's say I've locked and I've deployed something and then something's gone wrong. There's also commands built into the bot that lets me ping an on-call. So in this case, I'm asking for who's the on-call incident commander. I don't want to get their attention. I can do that again through the bot integration. So you can see it all these different commands that happen to be flowing out of a deploy, all happening in one place, and people can see it very easily. So this ties into the second scenario where this kind of chat integration has been really valuable, is in incident response. So this is another case of an environment where things are happening really fast. There's a lot of participants. We want to be able to quickly synchronize and make sure everyone is looking in the right place. So the automation we built for that is using the spy command. You can say, please start an incident. And what that does is it establishes a clear communication channel for that incident. So it creates a particular Slack channel or directs, it says, this incident has been bound to this channel. If you want to talk about that incident, here's where to go. So that gives it one clear place where you don't end up with people in 6 different channels talking about the same thing. It focuses the communication in one place. And then the other thing it does is it sends reminders. It sends notifications through Slack DMs to key roles of people who need to be involved in the response. So if you're an incident commander, or if we have another role that is the support communications person who does like external comms, they will also get a notification saying, hey, an incident started, it's in this channel, please go check it out. So it makes sure that all the key participants during an incident are pulled together and brought to one place. A few other commands that we built in for handling incidents, we added the ability to, so when you have a Slack channel where the incident's going on, there's a lot of, it can be very verbose. There's a lot of people talking, there's a lot of the channel history quickly scrolls off, and there's a lot of things to keep track of. But there's key events in the incident where you want to be able to make a note of it. So a very clear discovery was made about what went wrong, or a decision was made about what we're going to try to do to mitigate it. We want to keep track of those key events because it makes postmortem analysis a little bit easier. So we added a command where you can say incident note whatever, and it'll keep track of that information for the postmortem. Similarly, we also added if you had a particular emoji reaction to a message, that message will also be tagged as an important note that should be captured for postmortem analysis. So in this case, I've added a note. Another thing you see in this particular case is, again, we're using PagerDuty integration to page a particular front-end developer, in this case, to bring them into the incident. So another command that we added in here is, so let's say you have a new participant that gets brought into an incident. So it's been ongoing for a while. Some new person, like a front-end developer or whatever, gets pulled in. They need to quickly get up to speed on what's been going on. So another command we added through this chat integration is called spy incident TLDR. And what that does is it prints out a summary in the channel of sort of the key information about the incident. So it tells you kind of a high-level summary, a timeline of the key events and notes that were made, key participants, when it started, where the channel is, and things like that. So that gives you a very quick snapshot of everything that's been going on in the incident. So the third scenario I'll talk about quickly is really a fun one that was added just last year, which is the ability to do data center failovers. So Shopify runs in several different data centers, I think 4 different data centers today. And it's broken up into shards or pods of like a certain subset of customers are running in this particular data center. And we need the ability, if there is a catastrophe in that particular data center, to move a shard of customers from one place to another. This is quite a complicated operation to perform. There is, databases have to be synchronized, asynchronous job queues have to be drained and moved over, network configuration has to be changed to move the traffic over. So there's a lot of moving parts here, and it's quite complicated. And what we discovered was the team built automation to do this, but because it was so complicated, it was run very rarely, and because it was run very rarely, it almost always failed, essentially. When we tried to do a failover, some aspect of our system had changed since the last time we attempted the failover, and it would go wrong. So the team decided that this is something where, it's one of those, there's the adage in continuous delivery that if it's a painful operation, just do it more often, and that'll force you to make it more stable and more efficient. So the team set a goal of being able to do data center failovers with a single Slack command. And actually, this picture here is actually one of the very early failovers. I think the second or third time Shopify did a failover. It looks like it went late into the evening, and they're all gathered together at Willem's house trying to get the failover completed. So the result of this was a spy command so that you could do a failover. So you see an example here. Xavier has done spy failover Shopify, a particular pod or shard, a set of customers, to the Ashburn data center. So what it's saying is move that whole subset of customers from one data center to the other. Most of our Slack commands don't require any additional authorization. We just trust you to do the right thing. This particular case, it's quite a high impact command, so we do actually require you to do an authorization step to make sure you are someone who is allowed to perform data center failover. So you can see here, it spit back an authorization link. Xavier would click on that, and it would authorize him, and then go ahead and do the failover. And then what it does is there's another channel, the failovers channel, where there's a more verbose output of all the different steps that have gone on. Then what we see here at the end is a summary of, failover is completed. This pod is now in the Ashburn data center. And there's an additional command you can see at the bottom, spy pods, that lets you see, here's all the shards of Shopify, in which data center are they running. So I can quickly validate that, that this failover has worked as expected. So the interesting thing is about this is, you wouldn't think that such a heavyweight operation as a data center failover would benefit from that high level of automation where you'd want to be able to perform it. It seems like over automation or overkill to be able to perform it in a single command. But it was really more about setting the mindset that this is such a critical capability to have that it has to be rock solid. And the only way for it to be rock solid is to perform it all the time. So it's really about making that mental shift that this is something that we should be able to do anytime we need to, very easily. And so having it be a single Slack command wasn't actually the point. It was more about setting that expectation that this is something that should be very available to us to be able to do anytime. And it turned out to be, it really did work. So now failover is, we had the automation 2 years ago, but it was very flaky. And now the automation, because it's so easy to run, it's now used quite frequently. In many different incidents, we've been able to do failovers, have them run really quickly. And as a result, that automation has become really rock solid. So of course, there's always a few other fun commands that we do with this. So another thing we do, it's very important for our team, is that we have a Redis database that keeps track of puns that were made in a particular Slack channel. So in this case, someone made a joke. There's a emoji reaction that indicates this is a pun, and then our database keeps track of increments the pun score for that channel. So that's another super important capability that we were able to add with ChatOps. So just to tie it all together, what we've found with this is that pushing these capabilities into a Slack chat command has really given us the same capabilities of having everyone in one physical room, but in a much more scalable way. So today we have, our new operations room has 600 people in it. They're distributed around the world, but they're still able to do the same kinds of things that we had built this original operations room for. When there's an incident, we can all get together. When there's releases going out, we can all go to one place and find out what's going on. So we found this to be super successful, and it's the SPY code base is actually one of the most highly contributed to code bases at Shopify. There's over 100 different developers at the company have contributed changes to it. So it's become this shared code base that every developer at the company really loves, feels invested in, and is able to contribute to. And there's dozens and dozens of different commands that are available now for different kinds of productivity applications. So that's pretty much it. I kind of went through that really quickly. I wasn't sure how much time we'd have available, but I'm happy to answer any questions or talk about any more details that people want to know about.
Have you all given any thought to open sourcing that, or how feasible it would be to open source something like the SPY tool, since ChatOps might be very company specific?
Yeah, I mean, so it is built on an open source bot framework, right? So it's called Lita. It's a Ruby-based bot framework. So that is most of the infrastructure of it. I can't, it's hard to see what other specific parts we could open source, because most of the rest of it is very specific integrations that are connecting, our infrastructure, our third-party tools. So, it's a lot of glue code that's very specific to our environment. So I'm not sure, like our general approach is like, we're open sourcing anything that, is easy to open source and that has wide value. I'm not sure if we have like enough here of wider value to be interesting.
Right. Reminds me of Fowler's Patterns of Enterprise Architecture. I'm wondering if maybe someone's already written that book, Patterns of Enterprise Chat Ops. But it's got some great stuff in there. I really liked the incident TLDR. That was cool.
Yeah, we found it like it is, it's a very highly, like, I only touched on a couple of different command scenarios here, but it's really something that, another example in the developer productivity area is integration with GitHub. There's a number of things you can only do as an administrator in GitHub when we don't want to give 800 people in the company admin rights. So what we did is expose as Slack commands things that we feel are pretty safe for people to do without having to giving them admin rights. So ability to add people to teams, a command for archiving, backing up and archiving repos that are no longer used. So there's just lots of different commands we're able to add on here that people really find valuable.
Great, thanks.
Okay, well, I'm also happy to, like, if anyone has more questions about this later, we can always talk about it in the Slack channel. I'm in there, and many of the other people from Shopify have also been quite involved in this code base and can talk about it in more detail too.
Can I hop in with one? I thought somebody else might have been asking one in the background.
Yeah.
Is like discoverability of the tooling a challenge there? As we've gone back and forth on this quite a bit.
Well, so that's actually one of the huge advantages, right, of a chat interface. So when we build a standalone tool, discoverability is a big problem, right? For them to know that here's this website you need to go to get access to a particular tool. The thing with the chat command is every time it's used, it's teaching everyone else in the channel about it, right? So we certainly highly encourage people to use the commands in the public channel. Like, some people will start a private chat with the bot and do it there, but we really strongly encourage, like, just run those commands in the public channel, and that way everyone who's in there is being taught about it. And it ends up resulting in this kind of natural selection where the commands that are valuable tend to get executed more, and then more people know about them because they see them. And then I think there's dozens of commands that people have forgotten about because they haven't been reinforced in that way. So I think there can be a problem there, but it's the chat interface makes that easier than for most other tools.
Thanks.